So today I'm sitting down with Mike de Giorgio, the founder of Greenhouse Sports, a charity that has worked with over 60,000 young people across London using sport as a tool for real lasting change. Mike left a successful career in financial consultancy in 2001 to start something completely different. And what began as a small holiday pilot on a housing estate in West London has grown into 65 full-time programs across 16 London boroughs and is now spread to other areas of the country. He was awarded an OBE for his services to sport and community, named one of the Evening Standard's most influential Londoners, and the model he created, putting full-time coach mentors inside schools, is unlike pretty much anything else out there. I'm really looking forward to this one. Mike, welcome to the Power of Sport.
Thank you, Sam.
So you sold a financial consultancy in 2001, Mike. What made you walk away from that world and start something completely different?
Well, I mean, at the time when I stopped, I wasn't thinking of setting up Greenhouse. It was stopping for other reasons, and I was lucky enough to be able to sell my business and was looking for something else to do. I wasn't quite sure what that would be, and certainly I just sort of spent months looking around, looking at other opportunities, mainly paid opportunities, and seeing other things I could set up. But then I got involved in seeing what could be done in with young people, and Greenhouse was what we actually set up.
Brilliant. And was it called Greenhouse straight away?
Actually, it's funny enough. People often ask me why it's called Greenhouse.
Yeah.
The reason at the time was, people often think that we're trying to grow people like you do in a greenhouse and develop them in a greenhouse. The actual reality was a good friend of mine. He had an environmental charity called Greenhouse Foundation, which he hadn't started using yet, and I persuaded him basically to let me use the charity, change its name, change its objects. We changed it to Greenhouse Schools initially, then Greenhouse Charity, then now Greenhouse Sports. But basically, we've been doing the same thing since the beginning.
Great. And am I right in saying you did a pilot at St. Paul's School?
Yeah, I mean, my son was at school at the time, and he was 13 years old, and he and his friends often had issues coming out of school, and it just seemed silly that they and other kids from the area were battling stupid things, taking each other's mobile phones and all the other things. And I thought this was silly. So I was very lucky to have found, basically persuaded the school and the local police to try a trial period whereby we could get the young people to meet each other and play sport against each other and see if we could break down some of those barriers. It was a success. The program worked. The young people started meeting each other instead of taking each other's phones. They started saying hello, Johnny, hello, Peter, and very, very kindly. The school were great at allowing us to use their facilities, but all the other private schools then suddenly said, can you help us use the facilities of our school and break down the barriers with our local community? And that was fine, but we did that for about a year and a half before I realized actually my job was not to make private schools look good and feel good. It was more about trying to use sport as a way of encouraging people to develop. We all know that there's so many good things that can happen with sport. You learn to win, to lose, to develop as an individual. And hopefully now with Greenhouse, we're trying to prove to people that if you can work hard at your basketball or your table tennis, you can equally work hard at your maths and English and anything else that you're trying to do.
Yep.
And so we were very lucky to have the St. Paul's initially helping us, the other schools allowing us to run facilities and programs on their schools. But then we actually changed the model, and we went into where the young people actually came from, and they went to school in their local schools, and we went to run programs in their schools. So we changed the model.
So that's quite an unusual approach, and you've described your people as 51% mentor, 49% coach. What does that look like in real life?
Well, to be honest, obviously at the beginning I didn't really know what I was doing and didn't have a clue as to what a good program looked like, and I employed a lot of people to come in and help me and assist me, advise me, etc. And that was great. But actually what happened is I realized that initially what I wanted to do is to get people who are really talented at the level 1, level 2, level 3 coach at whichever sport we were doing. And that was great. But the problem is that the young people realized that, you needed to find a coach who could actually relate to the young people we were working with. So what we did is we changed the model, and we went to the other extreme and started employing a load of effectively social workers, people who came in and could relate to the young people. And that was great. Other than we soon worked out that the young people in day 2, 3, 4 were as good as the coaches at the sport. So that wasn't very good. So we had to find that hybrid. We needed to find people who were able to relate to the young people, but at the same time teaching them to play that particular sport. So that was quite difficult, and it's still a problem now, finding enough good coaches who have the ability not just to be technically good at the sport, but to be in a position to relate to the young people has always been one of our problems.
Yeah, I'm sure. And so 60,000 people have gone through Greenhouse Sport now, which is an eye-watering number. What does success look like? How do you measure that impact?
Well, the impact actually, to be honest, is not just to how many of them have turned out to be good sports people. Obviously, if you play a lot of sport with high quality coaching, you're going to be getting better at the sport. So we have people who've become English table tennis champions. We've had people who've gone on basketball scholarships to the States, etc., etc. That is success. But the real success actually is not that. The real success is to see people turning up to school more often, doing academically better, being in a situation where you have to remember that we're only working with young people from disadvantaged backgrounds. And it's a real cliche to a certain extent, but we're really only trying to work with, we're not interested in going into schools with lots and lots of privileges. If you go into a private school, those young people don't need us. Middle class parents don't need us, because actually what they've got is they normally have their own facilities, their own way of operating. We wanted to go around and work with young people who don't normally have this privilege. And the privilege is having a fabulous coach who could help them develop. And success is really when you see the young people develop. You see them turning up to school more often, because once they turn up to school more often, they're going to learn more. If you're in a position of getting young people to turn up to school, for instance, preschool at breakfast, pre-breakfast and for breakfast programs, then they're there. Once they're there, they're likely to stay in the school. Once you're likely to go to school, we've been very lucky that as a result, our kids have not been missing school. There's absenteeism is much lower in our programs than they are with our young people than elsewhere. So success has been when the school realizes that the young people we're working with are being given an opportunity to develop. And yes, they develop well at the sport, but they actually develop more and get better academic results at the end, which is really what we're looking for. Because very few of them are going to become professional basketball players. But if you're better at maths or English or whatever subject it is, you're going to do better in life with a better education.
You must have over that number of people, you must have so many stories. But are there a couple of stories that stand out in terms of?
Well, it's just funny enough. Yesterday, I was talking to a couple of young people who I remember, as young people who worked with us, who are now employed by us. I mean, that's lovely. It's lovely to see that come in. We have other people who are on our program. We have one person on our program, Nick Premper, who's one of our young people. He's now on our board. that's great to have his input.
Yeah.
There are so many people who've gone on to do good things, and you can only be very proud of them and feel that you've been part of that journey.
Definitely. And so the funding landscape has changed, I would imagine, a lot over that time. How do you view the funding landscape at the moment for charities like yours?
To be honest, it's always been difficult. It's never easy, but ultimately you have to prove that what you're doing is sensible, and you can actually measure success, and as a result you can go back to your funders and say, thank you for your funding, this is what has been the result of it. And too many times at the beginning people were telling me about I always call it my father's problem, because my father always used to turn to me and say, hey Mike, how many people now are on your program? And if I'd said they were 10 and last time they were 5, he'd say, oh, that's great, isn't it? There's twice as many as before. But it soon became obvious that it wasn't a numbers game. It wasn't quantity, it's quality. It's what you actually do with those young people. And I would say that to measure success, it's actually measuring not the number of people on the programs, but the actual what you've actually done with them, when you can measure the impact you've had on those young people. And that's actually the most important thing to do.
Do you know roughly? I mean, you've just prompted me there that I went on my walk last year around 92 football grounds and spoke to foundations about their work in communities. It was brilliant. And I went to Manchester City, and we started talking about numbers, and they said actually they're not bothered about it. It is a significant number. They help 17,000 people a year. They're a massive organisation, but they were very proud of the fact that they spent 24 hours a year working with them. So a couple of hours.
24 hours a year.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
24 hours a year per person. So a couple of hours a month per person that's on their programs, and they strive to do as much as possible. What does that look like at Greenhouse? So what sort of how much time?
That's very true. I mean, the reality is that we have some people who are probably on our program for a number of hours per week.
Yeah.
There are other people who are on our program. We actually measure. So actually, funny enough, is we measure how many people spend more than 1 hour a week on our programs.
Okay.
The program is different, because we actually go into schools and we put coaches full time into that school. So in that school, we can't work with the 500,000 people at that school. We're working with a smaller group. The coach is full time in that school. What I mean by full time in that school, it means that they're working 46, 47 weeks a year in the school and working 40 hours a week in the school. So the school is, they are there more than the teachers, because they're there in term time and holiday time. Yeah. So as a result, they're really very involved with the school and the young people. Now, obviously, there are some people who are very involved with us, and they're with us many, many, many hours a week. And some of them are only with us a little bit of time. Obviously, we're trying to persuade them to spend more time with us. But the limited resource ultimately is the coach, how much time the coach can be in that program. And secondly, the facilities available, because you've got to remember that the school is running a school first and foremost. They're not trying to be a facility provider for us.
Yeah.
So, we have a number of people there who are spending considerable number of hours, and some who are spending less time.
Yeah. And how do you go about, or how does the coach mentor go about choosing the people? How are they selected as to who benefits from Greenhouse's work?
Well, first of all, we have to find the right school. So the right school is what I suppose you'd call a needy school. A needy school means, for me, a school with a high number of free school meals and that kind of thing. But in any school, there are middle-class kids in a school, as well as people who are less privileged. And what we're trying to do is we try to work with the school and their the young the adults in the school to try to target people there. We don't want to just go in and say we're a basketball program. We want anyone who's over 6 foot to come to our program.
Mm.
That's
No.
that's not the idea. The idea is to actually work with the school to target people. Now, some schools say, "Hey, we want to target girls." Something they want to target special needs young people. Some people are providing us with the naughty gang. Different schools have a different idea of who they want to target, and we try
Mm.
to work with them to develop whichever group they want us to work with. But the reality is, in any school, we're probably working with 60, 70 young people, and
Yeah.
not more than that, because obviously many more come one-offs, but the ones we're really concentrating on is a relatively small number.
Mm. So you spent 20 plus years basically using sport to develop people, which I'm a passionate believer in. But tell me in one sentence the power of sport.
Well, I mean, the best way to describe it, to be honest, is what sport has done for me. Because I was, when it came to sport, I was, relatively good at sport, and by being good at sport, I made a lot of friends. I was part of a team. I learned how to work in a team. I tried to operate with, obviously it encourages you to play more sport, but it also taught me that if you work hard at sport, you can work hard at other things in your life. And I was lucky, privileged enough to be good at sport, and then also academically sound enough to do well at school, decent O levels, A levels, university, and I went on to become a chartered accountant afterwards. So, and set up my own business, and these are all skills that I feel sport was an incredibly important part of my development. And
Yeah.
so I feel it's the same thing that other people can benefit from.
Yeah, makes sense. And what terrifies me is looking at competitive sport at weekends, and the fact that football clubs are now charging 400 to 500 quid a season for kids to play. Basketball clubs are having to charge 75 to 80 quid a month for kids to play. Do you have a view on how we might remove those financial barriers between young people and playing sport outside of school?
Well, the trouble is that it's difficult, because at Greenhouse, we're lucky that we have been successful at persuading people to fund us. As a result, the young people are not paying to come on our programs. They're just in a position to, have this relationship with the coach, and as a result, they are in a position to benefit for free. It's very sad that not everybody doesn't have that opportunity. But I mean, there's so many youth clubs that are shutting. There's so many football clubs that are charging more and more, and other sports. It's sad. But even at schools, schools are cutting. They're always cutting, because we're in a, economically we can't appear to value it, and it's a pity, because sport is a really important way. By the way, Sam, I'm not sure sport is unique. I think some people do it through drama, some through music, some through
Yeah.
art. These are all really important media, and I just feel that personally, I've always felt that sport was what did it for me. But I'm not silly enough to think that sport is the only way to do this.
No.
There are other ways of doing this, other ways of developing young people.
Yeah, totally agree. So you've focused on London historically, but you mentioned earlier that you're now looking at Leicester and other areas. Is that a big plan? Is that a big part of your plan? Do you plan to expand?
It's all to do. It's all to do with sustainability of income. When people give us money, someone gives us £100. I don't think that's £100 to spend. I think of it as £33 a year for the next 3 years. We just don't go into a program and start it without feeling that we're going to spend, at least 3 years operating in that program. Because what's wrong is when you go into a program, you start it, you have, you start something exciting, and then you say to the kids, "We've run out of money, we're going." We don't work that way. We try to have that sustainability. Sustainability is a really important thing. Sustainability of funding, sustainability of the coaches. We try to get the coaches to work in the school, the same school. It's one coach in that, at least one coach in that school, and that person is in there full time, building a special relationship with young people, rather than someone coming in and then leaving after 1 week, 1 month, or even 1 year. We're trying to be there as a long-term sustainable project.
Yeah, that's great. And do you what sort of, do you have the normal funding mix? Are you unusual in any way? Do you what's your funding strategy in outline?
Well, we're very lucky. We have very little governmental funding, if none at all, other than, of course, that the schools contribute. It's very important for us that the schools contribute to each program. If they don't contribute, we feel they don't value it. So we do ask the schools to contribute, but we are subsidizing the schools tremendously. So how do we subsidize them? We have high net worth individuals who support us, corporates who support us, trust and foundations who support us. We have lots of events which try to raise money for us, et cetera, et cetera. It's the usual mix, but it's hard work, and it's not just hard work now. It always has been hard work. But I mean, measuring our impact and trying to prove that our impact, makes sense, has obviously helped us to generate more funding in the future. In the past, and hopefully in the future.
Do you outsource some of that measurement, or is it all done internally?
We've measuring the impact, or measuring.
Yeah, measuring the impact.
Yeah, measuring the impact. Again, I think that we've learned. We've tried a number of different people in house to do it. We're very lucky that recently our CEO, Don Barrell, he introduced us to somebody called Professor Camilla, who was at university in Swansea, and we managed to persuade her to come in and work with us. And it's really professionalizing our impact measurement. Big thing. The software has improved. We have much better information and much easier for the coaches to document what's going on than we did when we first started. At the beginning, it was quite difficult. People doing everything, handwriting it, and to be honest, some of our coaches are not particularly good at the paperwork, because a lot of them are better at the coaching and development of the young people than they are at the they were probably never, many of them were not particularly academic in the first place. And administration isn't something that they're particularly good at. I mean, obviously I'm generalizing because some of them are very good.
Sure.
But having those people now, having Camilla help us, that has been great, and something that we've developed and measuring our impact more and more.
Yeah, and tell us about. I saw something about your headquarters. Tell us. I've not been, but tell us about your headquarters. They look amazing.
Well, they are an extraordinary deconsecrated church in Malibone that we've been given various high net worth individuals, and particularly one of them, one individual who's a close friend of mine, who very kindly was the man behind the inspiration behind it all. And he has developed this extraordinary church that we've turned into a community centre, sports centre, mainly, to be fair, a table tennis centre with 20 odd tables. But then apart from that, we've also got the our offices there, where we've had we have our head office staff there working from there. It is an extraordinary building. You should come and see it. I mean, it really is something. It is something that we are working principally with the Listen Green estate, but also other people there who are coming to use it, and it is absolutely magical and worth coming to visit. Please come and visit.
I will do. Thank you. So plans for the Mike. You've kind of you're now a trustee rather than running the whole shit. How have you found that transition?
To be honest, I'm very proud of how it's developed. The whole organisation has developed. We've got some extraordinary people. We've got some extraordinary trustees. We're very blessed with having a great group of trustees. And then, apart from that, we've also, I was the sort of the CEO for the first, 18, 20 years, whatever it was, and now we've got Don Barrel who's running it, and he's doing a great job and managing to. I think one of the great things about Don is he's happened to make sure that we have high standards throughout, having some really good programs where if things are not right, he's sort of quite good at sort of tweaking it and improving the program. And I think that's where ultimately the impact measurement is so important, because we want to prove that what we're running is something which makes sense. If you've got a program which is not very good, we're wasting our money. So we're very keen to do that.
And were you looking for someone with a sporting background? Don was for those who don't know, he was a rugby player with Saracens, I believe. But were you looking for that sort of background, or was it a bit coincidental?
No, I mean, to be honest, I'm certainly not. I was never a professional sports player, so I don't think you needed to be a professional sports player. You just needed somebody who knew how to manage the team, and the team has grown, and you've got all these programs now, and there's a number of aspects to it. Like any business, it's got an operational side, a fundraising side, it's got a marketing side, effectively. You've got a number of different things, and he's helped us to grow and develop, and it's lovely to see how we are developing, and hopefully a long way to go.
Lovely. And looking forward, let's put 5-year window on it. What would you like to see the key changes over those next 5 years in terms of your support for young people?
Well, obviously working with more young people, trying to make, trying to improve every one of our programs. I don't think, we have sort of 65 programs. It's not a question of we want 165. If we do, it's hard to have an increase without sustainable funding. My dream is to have sustainable funding, and I would like to see more and more people support us, more and more people helping us to raise money to run more programs, but also to make sure that the programs we run improve. We just need to keep improving those programs and developing the young people more and more.
Yeah, and organisations like yours, sporting organisations, and speaking to them on a daily basis, and I'm just so impressed and wowed by the work that is going on. And now it's really interesting. I see football foundations basically speaking to government procurement teams, and they've got people in GP surgeries, in job centres, and so everything has to be professionalised across the sector. So with government increasingly using sport, what message would you now send it for where we are now in 2026? What message would you send to government about sports power?
So in 2011, I was asked by the Centre for Social Justice to chair a report about how sport can be used to develop young people in Britain. And we did this report, and in that report, we said that the big difference is the coach. You have a good coach, you normally have a good program. You have a bad coach, you have a bad program. So we said that the time and money and the Olympic legacy should be concentrated on helping develop coaching and coaches. Out of that, at the time, Prince William and Prince Harry had something called the Royal Foundation, and they asked if we could guinea pig a program which turned out to be something called Coach Core, which is still going now, which I'd really recommend, and is, funnily enough, being run. The CEO of that is an ex-Greenhouse person, Gary Laybourne, who's a fabulous person who has developed this. And the idea was to try to develop better coaches, get young people to develop the skill, like an apprentice program, effectively, to turn them out to becoming better and better coaches, because that's going to make the difference with the young people. It's rather like when we were all at school, we had good teachers who inspired us, and therefore we liked the subject and we did well at the subject because someone inspired us. So similarly with sport, it's a question of finding the right person to inspire us. And just to do that, we needed, if I was asking the government to help, I'd like them to do more and more with the coaches, because they are the ones who make the difference.
Yeah. And where do you, I mean, big subjects in the news at the moment. I'm going to ask you on two of them. Where do you stand on social media use amongst young people?
It's difficult. I mean, I think the reality is that I would suspect, but I haven't tested this, so I have to be careful here. But I suspect that our young people use social media a lot less than many others because they're so busy working with us and playing sport with us. I think keeping busy, playing sport, doing art, drama, music, whatever particular thing you have, is important. And they are, as a result, there's less time for social media, less time for you to worry about that thing. So personally, I suspect that people are doing less social media, using the social media a lot less with us. If you're not very busy and doing that, and you're always worrying about somebody else, what somebody else is thinking about you, that's quite difficult. So, I'm not a great fan of social media, for people who are bored, and I think play sport, you'll be better off.
Yeah, no, agreed. And thinking about Clapham a little bit, and what seems to come out, people talking about belonging, right? So belonging in the context of the problems that are happening in Clapham and elsewhere. How do you kind of foster that sense of belonging amongst people that are working with Greenhouse?
Well, I would say that there are different gangs. There are the bad gangs and the good gangs. Teams are good gangs. Being involved in a sports program, is effectively a gang, but it's a very positive gang. And I think if you have the opportunity to be involved in something with like-minded people who want you to succeed and help you to succeed and help you to develop, I think that's what more and more young people need. And having the right mentors, having the people who help you develop, is what it's all about. And I think sport is very good like that. It's a really good way of keeping people working together.
Yeah, agreed. Mike, I really, really appreciate you coming on The Power of Sport. Thanks so much. Fantastic work over such a long period, and I definitely will come and have a look.
Please do, and I hope to meet you in person.